Ambassador Melnyk, thank you very much. Welcome to DW, and thank you for hosting us at the Ukraine mission to the United Nations.
Thank you.
I want to start with the latest. Three Russian fighter jets flew into the Estonian airspace, and previously we saw Russian drones crossing into Romania and into Poland. And recently, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said that he does not want to fight Russia. But will he have to? Will they have to?
Well, last week there was a meeting of the Security Council convened for the first time in history by our Polish friends, and that was one of the issues. What shall we do as UN, as the Security Council, as international community? How shall we react to these kind of provocations? And I have stated during this meeting that we have to react. We don't just have to condemn, but there should be some kind of reaction, because there will be further steps, like you mentioned, with the fighter jets entering the airspace of Estonia. And I have to say that that's just the beginning. So our friends in Poland and in other countries of NATO and European Union, they have to decide how to react, not just verbally, not just here at the UN in New York, but also with some concrete steps that Russia would really see. There is a reaction, that they will not just swallow any kind of provocation, like with drones or now with the fighter jets, and tomorrow we might think that what I mentioned at the Council, we might expect, and that is not an exaggeration, to some extent, that drones and missiles might fall on European capitals. And that would be the question: how will Germany, how will France or UK or other countries react to those kind of Russian steps? And we don't have a reply to that.
You're saying that this is just the beginning. Do you feel that this threat is imminent to the European countries?
Of course. I mean, we are at the very beginning of something that might not be a full-scale war, that as we see now in Ukraine, but that is a scenario that I see also from my experience back in the last years, that Russia has prepared for a long time. And as we have seen also last week, as a reaction to this intrusion into the Polish airspace, the reaction was actually almost absent. I mean, in terms that Russia would see it as a reaction. And that is a very dangerous scenario, because our European friends, they have to be prepared. They should have been prepared for this kind of actions, provocative acts that will continue, and without properly reacting to these kind of escalatory steps, I cannot imagine that the Russians would really take seriously those kind of wars that we have heard also here in New York.
What would they take seriously then? What actions would you expect from the partners?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, to do what we have been asking since the very first days of this invasion back in 2022. Help us intercept missiles, drones, and on the or in the Ukrainian airspace.
So close the sky.
Of course, I mean, to close the sky. We would remember, I mean, the first weeks of this terrible war, and that was actually one of the few messages from Ukraine that we refer to our friends. Look, I mean, it's something that it is needed to show Russia that Europeans would be willing to support us, and now it's more needed than ever. I mean, to take this step, and that's something that we would also appeal to our German, to our Polish, to our European friends, to finally consider it seriously, and not just to look for excuses as we used to hear in the last years and months.
Will you and President Zelensky discuss these matters on the sidelines of the UNGA?
I'm sure that would be one of the topics, at least with our allies, and there will be a number of meetings with presidents and head of states here in New York in the coming week, and I'm sure that shall be one of the main topics to have on the agenda.
Ambassador, you're well known in the world for your sharp statements. Some say that the times dictate the tone, and some say that when the situation is boiling, diplomatic language is not in place, it shouldn't be in place. Some say that this is not diplomatic, but let me ask you this. How do you find words and expressions to deliver this very message? Because it might be very hurtful for you as a Ukrainian in the first place.
Of course, it's a very delicate balance that we face every day, every single day. Because when you sit the meeting of the Security Council, and then when you confront all those lies that you used to hear from our Russian representative, then of course it's not easy to find words and to remain calm. But again,
how do you do this?
That's kind of practice, because that's what they would expect. I mean, they would expect that we would overreact and then we would be seen as someone who seems to be weak, and we are not weak. We have still the support of our allies, not just on the Security Council, but generally also in the Assembly. And we would like to not just to keep that support, but we need to expand it. We have seen the latest votings in the General Assembly this February, and we have to find a new language, not just vis-à-vis our friends and allies. That's also one of the challenges that we face, because you know, it's not a fatigue, war fatigue, but it's something similar that everyone understands. I mean, the boundaries of what is possible, what is not possible here, politically speaking, and that's why there is not kind of a spirit you can feel, well, I mean, let's do tomorrow something different that we have not been thinking before. And secondly, we have to address in a new way our friends and partners in the global south, because we also have to find a key how to connect with them and how to persuade them that even though this war has been ongoing since 3.5 years now, there is still room for new ideas to find a way how to stop Russian political and diplomatic initiatives here at the UN, because Russians, they are coming back. I mean, they are trying to break this isolation where they used to be in the first months and even years of this war. Now they are looking for loopholes. They're trying to fill in this vacuum that they see, and they are capable to do this because they know the procedures. They have a huge mission. They are experienced diplomats. I mean, we shall not underestimate them. And so, at this particular stage of history, we have to reinvent our logics, our argumentation, and find the new key. I mean, to the heads, but also to the souls, both of our allies and partners. We need to keep them on track, but also to involve the rest of the world, because when you meet them individually, I mean, almost every single colleague of mine, ambassador from Africa, from Asia, they say, yeah, what is happening in Ukraine is terrible. I mean, we're against it. We need to defend charter. But when it comes to voting, when it comes to being vocal here at the UN, that's another story. So we still have a lot of homework to do to re-involve them, to find a way how to let them speak up, and not just to nod when we meet bilaterally and then be silent during discussions, be it in the Security Council, General Assembly, or wherever. That's something that we need, and that is one of the tasks of today's diplomacy of Ukraine here in New York.
A few weeks ago, we saw President Trump host Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and some criticized him for letting Putin break through this international isolation. Yet he says that it's his effort to broker peace in Ukraine. And we're not going to announce any meetings right now, but we can expect that both leaders of Ukraine and the United States may bump into each other on the sidelines of the UNGA. How would you assess President Trump's efforts to bring peace to Ukraine?
Well, first of all, and that's something that needs to be said, only with President Trump we have truly began a new diplomatic path to stop this terrible war. There was no one before who had tried to employ all the leverages and instruments that are available here at the U.S. To influence Russia, Putin personally, and to force him to sit on the table and talk. So we are in the middle of this process, and you're right. Next week will be important also in that sense. We hope that our president will meet President Trump to continue that very difficult conversation that have been ongoing since in the last months. And personally, I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling that we would be able also to continue not just all those talks that we had, but we would be able to find a way, a very delicate way, that Russia would realize. I mean, it is no longer possible, I mean, to hide behind some excuses or explanations. So we need to get them back, and it's, as it seems, unfortunately, it's only President Trump and the United Nations and the United States that seem to be capable to achieve this goal.
Is Trump powerful enough for this? Because I heard him personally say in Iowa during the primaries that I will end this war within 24 hours. Then he backed off and said it's more complicated than it seemed. Does he have power? Does he have the tools to pressure Putin and make him end the war?
We do trust President Trump, and we do believe that the United States, as a superpower, as the biggest and the most powerful country on this planet, is in the position to do everything that is possible, politically, economically, diplomatically, to force Putin to finally agree to a process where he would stop this war. For the time being, as we have seen, it is not easy, and I think our American friends have also realized that that is a very delicate process. But again, I mean, if not the U.S., then who else? Of course, we would welcome, and it's still on the table that our European friends would join all those efforts, not just maybe diplomatically or vocally, but also to join the efforts of the U.S., of the United States to combine the diplomatic efforts. I mean, to align the sanctioned regimes. That's what we are striving for.
If we were to start a list here, so tightening the screws of sanctions, statements from the countries, what else would you include into this list that you're expecting from your European and American friends to pressure Russia?
Well, we have seen in the recent days, after some delicate pressure from Washington, we have seen that our European allies are adjusting their position. I'm speaking about the 19th package of sanctions, and that's one of the issues that was on the agenda from the very first days, that our German, our European friends have to stop buying Russian oil and gas and coal. I mean, we have seen progress in the last years, that's true, and we're grateful that our European friends could find a way how to deal with this dependency, which was that was a political decision to have this dependency. Now we have progress, but still it's not enough, and we see that there is an interconnection between what Americans have been doing, trying to find the leverages that you mentioned, because what can be done? How can United States persuade Russia to take all those efforts seriously? And now we see this alignment. Now we see that Europeans could be quicker in stopping this politics of buying, especially LNG gas, because that's the big issue. We know that there are billions of of euros spent as we speak, but in the last months and years, that go and support Russian warfare machinery. And we see with the signals that we have been hearing from Washington that also this position is changing. So I think that's a positive sign that, and then we can hope for a combination of instruments that might be employed both here from DC and from European capitals, and that's something that Putin seems to be really afraid of. I mean, this unity in understanding what we have missed to do, what our European allies maybe have not finished. I mean, this logics. I mean, you want that the global South would join sanctions. I mean, and you know they have been and they remain reluctant to employ any unilateral measures, sanctions against Russia. So show the example by yourself. And again, we see that because of the mild pressure from the states, I mean, we see this change happening.
But it would be painful for the European countries to get off this Russian oil needle, if I do say so. Like, wouldn't it be?
Of course it is, but it's something that politicians in Europe should have had in mind at the very beginning of this war. I mean, that was obvious that this dependency has to be reduced or cut as soon as possible. As I mentioned, many steps have been undertaken so far, and we're grateful because, again, the dependency, even if we speak about Germany, I mean, it was tremendous on coal, oil, and then gas. And we have seen that with the political will, this miracle was possible. I mean, to cut the ties and no disaster happened, as many politicians, and you would remember, have predicted in the first months of the war. No, how could we? It's not possible. I mean, we would kill our economy. There will be a recession, and yes, the situation is difficult if we look at Germany for the moment, but there was no disaster. So with this political will, it was possible, and it will be possible now with further steps when we speak about LNG and other energy resources that Europeans have been buying until this day. But as we noticed, I mean, we need those impulses from Washington, apparently, I mean, to be even quicker on those way. And then the countries of the global South then will also look, because that's the story that I used to hear in Brazil or here in the UN about double standards. That look, I mean, look at yourself. That's what we hear. I mean, Europeans still buy Russian LNG, and you want from us to stop supplies from Russia. It helps our economy. I mean, we need to keep inflation. We need to ensure that our economy can grow, and with the cheap gas or diesel or any other products, that's possible. So I think that's the homework that needs to be done in Europe first.
Would you call this approach a hypocrisy?
Well, I mean, that's something that is in place, and that's something that we have been criticizing, and myself personally, in the last years. That even though our European allies have done a lot, and that's something that deserves recognition without any doubt. But again, was it enough? And as we see, apparently not, because even our American allies, they point in this direction, saying, look, I mean, let's combine our efforts, and then you could expect from Congress, from the White House, new decisions when we combine them with those steps that are expected that our European allies continue and finish this path to end dependency. But at the same time, what we hear, even in Germany, if we read the press, still many voices saying, look, when this war is over, hopefully sooner than later, then we can resume even Nord Stream pipelines and then something that as a trust-building measures. So I mean, we still hear at the very high level in Germany, and not just from the opposition, but also from some politicians that represent ruling parties. Look, why don't we have it in mind? That is dangerous.
What's your response to them?
Well, the response is the same what we have been hearing from President Trump in the recent days and weeks. Look,
Don't do this.
Don't do this. It's dangerous. Even if this war is over, hopefully with the help of our American and European friends, I mean, it doesn't mean that everything will be fine. That will be just the beginning. I mean, to ensure that this ceasefire, or hopefully a peace that we could achieve jointly with the help of our friends from the States and Europe, that this peace could be sustainable. And that can only be done that the politics that we have seen in the last years, finally, would continue, that Europe will never, ever be dependent on Russian resources, and not just energy resources, many other things that we can speak about metals, and I mean, there is a wide range of things that could not and has not been stopped in terms of economic relations. So, and that will be the creativity that will be needed, both here, but especially in Europe, to ensure that Russia can no longer hope that when this war is over, I mean, there will be, as we used to call it, business as usual, as we used to know it before the war. That is something that European, German politicians have to understand. I mean, there will be no way back as we used to have before February 24, 2022.
Since you mentioned this political will, I want to ask you about the UN, because it's celebrating its 80th birthday this year. It's still alive, obviously. We see the headquarters, it's still standing, but is it still kicking, if you don't mind me using this word?
That's a good question. I'm posing this question every single day to myself, asking what am I doing here? What can Ukraine achieve using all the bodies of the UN, I mean, not just the Security Council, not just the General Assembly, to ensure that that we have enough power and enough and good cards in our hands to stop this war. And as we have seen, of course, we have to admit that the main body, the Security Council, that was designed to ensure peace and security in the world after 1945, is in a deadlock. And we have seen that decisions that are needed from the Security Council to ensure, I mean, introducing sanctions, because actually that's the Security Council that, according to the Charter, should have introduced tough sanctions against Russia in the very beginning of the aggression. And I'm speaking not about 22, but about the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Crimea back 2014. Actually, I mean, that's the whole story. Now we have this deadlock. But again, our approach is very simple. We shall not just say, well, that's how it is. Russia is abusing its veto right. That's what we have seen in the last years. We have to act creatively, even taking into account, I mean, this situation, which is unfortunate at the Security Council, but also to re-involve the General Assembly. I mean, decisions of this body are not binding. We all know this from the point of view of international law, but they have this moral and political power that we need to ensure, especially now as we approach, hopefully, a true negotiation process to stop this war. We need to have UN, we need to have Secretary General on our side. And that's something that is important, because if you listen to the statements of the Secretary General, and also, of course, if you read the resolutions on Ukraine that were passed in the General Assembly, I mean, it's very clear. I mean, any agreement that could be reached about both ceasefire and then the peaceful solution shall be based on the principles of the UN Charter. And that's the basics. But our task is to ensure that this approach from the UN that we appreciate will have also and will be part of that process that is going hopefully to start. And that's something that is not easy because, as I mentioned, many countries, they have somehow arranged with the situation. Well, there is a terrible war, yes, we admit it, but again, what can we do? We are helpless here, and our task at the UN here is to persuade them that their voice is important, especially more important maybe now at this critical stage than it used to be in the last years, and try to find a way how those two bodies, the Security Council and the General Assembly, can act so that the charter that you mentioned, 80 years, you're right, 80 years, and very few people say about celebration. It's like there is not a mood for celebration, honestly speaking, here at UN. It just maybe they're marking this jubilee, that's true, but again, realizing that the UN has failed as an organization, as the only universal organization, has failed both to prevent wars like we have now in Ukraine, and second to stop them when those wars like the one that Russia has been waging against us could be stopped. So those are the challenges that we face. But again, UN is not toothless. UN shall not be helpless. Should not be just an observer in this big geopolitical game. I mean, there are many ways how to re-engage UN. The Security Council, General Assembly, the Secretariat, Secretary General, to help us at this critical stage, as I mentioned, to wage negotiations in the spirit of UN Charter. That's the legacy that we have.
Ambassador Andrii Melnyk, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.